Welcome back to another session of Better Podcasting Chats with me. Hi, I'm SP. This is a streamed and recorded casual conversations with other hobby and passion podcasters to share their journeys, experience, knowledge, and joy of podcasting. Better Podcasting is a project by Stephen John Drew and myself to help hobby and passion podcasters start their podcasts and make their existing projects better. That's why we came up with the name Better Podcasting. It's our hope that bringing on new voices from other hobby and passion podcasting spaces with potentially different points of view will help others just as much as listening to Stephen and myself. And also thank you to Matt Gerasimovich from the Tipsy Tolstoy podcast for joining me in the previous chat. You can check out Matt and his co-host Cameron at their new website since we recorded last time, at slaviclitpod.com. Now, to demonstrate what a hobby or passion podcast is, if you're tuning into this for the first time, you're like, SP, what are you talking about? For the next few moments, I'm going to talk about my passion space, so you get kind of an idea of what's going on. We'll start talking about SpaceX. Since the April 20th, 2023 Starship orbital flight test attempt, SpaceX has been hard at work to prepare for its Starship 2 flight at its Boca Chica Space Starbase facilities. Ship 25 and Booster 9 were chosen as the hardware pair to make this flight attempt. Elon Musk announced all future Starships would perform what is known as a hot staging maneuver, which means the second stage will fire while the booster stage is still firing as well. This maneuver will enable up to a 10% performance increase, according to Musk. I'm not sure it'll be that much, but it will lead to a minor performance increase. Ship 25 conducted a successful full 6-engine static fire on June 26th. And finally, on Monday, July 17th, SpaceX completed a major test of its new orbital launch mount's water deluge system after literally hundreds of trucks of concrete were poured and the installation of the pancake water system under the OLM, or orbital launch mount, as well as a high water pressure manifold and additional water tanks at the launch site. So while not staying within Elon's 1 to 2 month return to flight prediction he made immediately following the first Starship launch, this does put the second Starship launch within the 4 to 8 month quote unquote Elon time prediction, where you multiply Elon's predictions by a factor of 4. Over on the NASA side of the house, they got some new astronaut rides at the Kennedy Space Center. Canoe Technologies on Tuesday, July 11th, delivered 3 specially designed, fully electric crew transport vehicles to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The new trio of Astrovans, you get it, Astrovans, okay, will enter service as soon as late 2024, when the 4 astronauts assigned to NASA's Artemis II mission launch on the first crewed mission to fly around the moon in more than 50 years. Canoe based the new NASA crew transports on its LV, or lifestyle vehicle, which the company describes as having a multi-purpose platform to maximize cabin space, utility, and productivity on a compact footprint. Externally, the new Artemis vehicles appear to be somewhat of a cross between the livery of the Apollo astronaut transfer van with the sleek outline of the shuttle-era Astrostream or Airstreams, only with a more modern look accentuated by their street view windows and panoramic glass roofs. The Canoe CTVs join a new generation of Astrovans that include SpaceX's fleet of Tesla Model X electric cars used to transport Dragon crews, and a customized Airstream that will take astronauts flying on Boeing's Starliner to the launch pad. All exciting stuff to me. I love space. And if I was podcasting on space with a hobby podcast, that's the sort of stuff that I would talk about. Hobby podcasters all podcast from a passion like I just did, because we emphasize the fun, passion, and dedication to podcasting. Now, for the next hour, I'm chatting with a Texan, IT manager, and hobby podcaster. Rob Daly co-hosts and produces the Smoking and Drinking and Capes podcast with his torturer, Jason, who was actually on episode 24 of this show. Rob also co-hosts the Smoking and Drinking and Space podcast with Jason as well. Rob is a former Blockbuster employee, a video game enthusiast, outdoorsman, and laser rifleman. Welcome to the chat, Rob.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I don't know what to say because you know a lot about me, and I don't give out a lot.
I read your website. That's it.
Oh, well, that would explain a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I got you.
Yeah. And you're about me?
Yeah. I totally forgot that that's on the website there.
Yeah.
Wow. Here, I thought you were using your super secret government contacts to check up on me.
Now, this is actually a good teaching point, which we haven't discussed on this show at all.
Yeah.
On your website, you should probably have a way to contact you and an about me page so people get to know a little bit more about you. Also, you can filter what other people get to know about you. So if you don't like whatever I said on there, you can take some stuff off.
No, I'm not ashamed for working at Blockbuster at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I got out before they did.
And that Jason, who was your torturer.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's an everyday thing. You listen to the show, you know it's true, and sometimes I give it back. Hence our current our current summer series. That was all me.
Kind of figured. So let's go back to the beginning. What inspired you to start podcasting?
I lost a bet, basically. No, so I've known Jason. I knew Jason for quite a while. We knew each other from playing video games and stuff like that when I guess technically he would have been in college and I would have been in high school because there's about a 6-year difference there. So, met there and then I'd go hang out at his house when he lived closer to me and only a couple hours away. I'd go hang out for the weekend or something. And at the time, him and Red were doing Satis, smoking and drinking in space. And he goes, "Hey, we're recording an episode. You're in it." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. You're here. You might as well do it. So I got. Which one was it? It was either Cowboys and Aliens or The Arrival with Charlie Sheen. It was a double header. Like they ended up, not only did I have to do one, I had to do two that weekend. And I don't remember which one came out first. We recorded them at the same time, and that's all I know. And I regret watching The Arrival.
The first one, not the second one, right?
The second one wasn't too bad. The first one was terrible.
Right.
In a bad way. Not in a good way.
So you lost a bet and they said, okay, we're coming on.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
All right. But today, what excites you most about podcasting?
Honestly, it's, I mean, I was in, I worked for Blockbuster, right? So I like movies. I love watching movies. I kind of punch down on the movies sometimes, but in all honesty, except for Metropolis, I really haven't watched anything that I just thoroughly hated. Metropolis was terrible, and I'm repping it behind me here because Jason got it for me for Christmas, and I figured I better put it up there. So you're welcome, Jason. Otherwise, it's going back in the corner when it's done. But yeah, I was always into movies, and so doing this, I get to talk with Jason. We're busy now, so literally we talk twice a week. We'll do a Friday, we'll play video games. We still do the video game thing. So we play video games on Friday night, and then we're either recording the podcast on Sunday or on Wednesday, depending on which show we're doing. And it's every other week type of deal. So it's not constant. But, it just still get to hang out with him and shoot the breeze and have a good time. But it's movies. I love movies.
We all have movies that we hate. There is another friend of mine who infamously hates the movie Soldier.
I don't recall that one. I've seen so many movies that it's like, if you talk about it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I saw that, sometimes. Especially when I worked at Blockbuster.
You'll have to look at it later,
Yeah, I
look it
will.
up later, and be like, hey, yay or nay.
Yeah.
But we all have that. And yeah, one thing that I was thinking in the last couple of weeks is, podcasting is my, going to the bar guy time. I don't drink all that much because I'm allergic to corn, which is most alcohol, right? So I don't go to the bar and I don't like hang with the dudes there. So this is where I get to hang with the dudes. And I think a whole generation of people get to do this as well with hobby podcasting. So I think it's a valid thing. And you brought up another thing, video games. A lot of people do that too as their bro guy time.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I still do it.
Once you started those recordings of Space Cowboys and Metropolis and everything, how did you really learn to podcast? Was it just day by day, or did you actually seek out some knowledge?
So starting off, so I was eased into it. Jason was gentle. Yeah. he, I did guest hosting. So at first, the only times I'd ever get on is when I was down there for the weekends. I'd drop my kid off at a camp, and then I'd go hang out with him for a weekend. And so if they happen to be recording, it was like, hey, you're watching this, and you're going to be a guest on the show. Great. Didn't have anything. And then eventually he said, okay, we're going to have you on more often. You need to get a mic. I said, well, I have a headset. He goes, no, get a real mic. All right, fine. So then he told me to get a mic, and yeah, I started guest hosting for a little while. And then eventually I took over because of life circumstances with Red passing. And I knew Red too. So I had met Red. He had come. He's been to my house a couple times, and I've hung out with him up in. He was from Amarillo or Canyon, Texas, up near Amarillo, Texas. So I'd hung out with him a few times. It was. Yeah, Jason asked me to jump on board, and I said okay. Basically,
Okay. When Jason was on in episode 24, he talked about losing his friend and co-host during that from his perspective, during that
Right.
whole thing. Now, from your perspective, I mean, you knew Red, but you were coming on replacing him. How did that make you feel, and how did that go in your mind over the course of months of basically replacing Red as co-host?
So I was an acquaintance of Red. I'd only met him a few times in person. He played video games with us all the time too. He was part of our Friday night video game group there for a little while. And, so I had online friends mostly. So his passing wasn't great, but it didn't affect me as much because I didn't have, he was a gaming buddy. I didn't have an emotional connection like growing up with him or something like that as deeply as what Jason did and some of the other guys that we gamed with. So it was really just him, Jason saying, "Hey," at first I knew he was sick, so it's like, "Hey, I need you to step in for a few episodes just so that we can keep it going because the important thing is not to have a hiatus as much as you possibly can, be as consistent as you possibly can." And so Jason was real good about that, about, hey, it's every week or it's every other week or whatever it was back then. I think it was every week. So even during that, he tried to have a buffer. So I got into that, and for the most part, I wasn't trying to replace Red. But I was still trying to keep the spirit and the energy of the show like it was. Nobody was going to be able to replace Red, but doing a few of the episodes with him, I knew kind of how they work together, and so I tried to do my best to fit into that, at least until I became full time. Then it was like, okay, now I need to figure what's my shtick, what's my what am I known for, whether it be true or not.
Just play the cards that you're dealt, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the best thing to do is be yourself, first of all, especially if you're not. Yeah. Because then you don't have to figure out who that avatar is that you've created, unless you're doing like a D&D playthrough podcast and you're actually stepping in as another character, or
Right.
audio drama where you're actually an actor or something like that. If you're doing a review podcast or any sort of other podcast where it's a panel or solo, just be yourself, because that's what the audience is going to enjoy. But yeah, I think that's important. I think it's important not to try to step in as somebody. If you're replacing somebody, whether they pass away or not, I think it's important to acknowledge it and to give nods to it. But at the same time, you got to be your own self. And when you lost Red from your podcast, it was right around episode 50-ish. And now
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. And now you've got how many episodes? Almost 300, right?
No, we're not that far. We're on one. I can tell you right now, we're on 216. Well, we've recorded 216. I think we're only on like 212 on Satis.
On Satis. And then you add, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Ours, if you add
it's getting close to 300.
Yes. Yeah. We're getting close to 300 episodes total. We're 72. Probably closer to 65, because I'm doubling up during our whole heroes thing.
Yeah, that'll be interesting when you guys ever want to count all of them. Do you subtract whatever? So for the general public that don't know, Rob here is doing two podcasts. It's Smoking and Drinking in Capes, which you produce.
Correct.
And then Smoking and Drinking in Space, which you're the co-host and Jason produces.
And that was the first, that was the brainchild, I guess, or that's the first show.
Yeah, the Inception
show. Yeah, that's speaking of which, we've reviewed Inception. So, a little plug there. No, so Satis started Smoking and Drinking in Space. That's the first thing. Sci-fi podcast from a couple guys that think they know sci-fi. And then what was it? Last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Jason wanted. The rule with sci-fi is no superheroes. That's his rule. No superhero movies. Even though some superhero movies could be classified as sci-fi as well, that was his stipulation. But then he decided, hey, I want to do superhero movies, and I said, okay, sounds good. So we're going to put those in the list. He goes, no, you're going to be the host. Okay. And at the time we had, there was another James. So when I came on as a full-time host, we also brought on James to try to help alleviate kind of the responsibilities and kind of try to get a third perspective in there for a little while. And so he was on for, I don't know, quite a few, almost probably about a year and a half's worth of episodes. And then he got busy with his own podcast that he had going on. And so he just didn't have the time to do what at the time was 3 podcasts. I don't know if you know about doing 3 podcasts all at the same time every week.
This week will be 4. So yes,
well, there you go. There you go. See, you don't know about 3. You only know 4. Yeah, you know about doing more.
I did one year when I first started. I think it was 7 some weeks. I did 7 podcasts in 1 week.
I remember you were guest hosting with us, and you had like 7 because you stepped in to help another friend or something. And yeah, you were doing like 2 podcasts a day some days. It was ridiculous.
It was. So yeah, I understand it's somebody that is all of a sudden finds themselves with 3 podcasts having to pare down. I understand that.
Yeah, and so we started on Smoking and Drinking in Space, did that. Jason wanted to do superheroes, so basically it turned into Nose Goes, and I was the last one to touch my nose, apparently. And I was the only one that wasn't a host. And so we just did a spinoff, and now we do Satic, Smoking and Drinking in Capes, which is a superhero podcast. The format is very much the same. That was one of the things that we wanted to keep. We have we have our opening cold open with a movie clip. We do news, kind of the running. Right now, we're not doing news because we're on summer break, but kind of the running joke is I was doing the news segment on Hiatus for the longest time, and I would always bring in superhero stuff just because I wanted to. Because I was doing geek things, I was doing science, and then I was also doing geek, movie type stuff. Because Marvel's a big thing; it's a big thing for everybody, right? Anybody that's going to listen to our show is going to probably have tasted a little bit of the Marvel MCU stuff. So I was doing stuff, and mostly I do that, or I did that. I still do it to piss off Jason because it annoys him that I'm bringing superhero news to a sci-fi show. But then he turned it around, and so he does news on my show, and it's typically science news. And so that we did that. We've got the pod crawl, which, Jason talked about it. That's got read as the intro before we start doing the summary. And he talked about the whole pod crawl thing. That, by the way, I've done a pod crawl before. There was a couple times when I guest hosted that he had me do it. Jason had me do it just because he didn't have the time. And it wasn't bad when you're doing it once in a while, but now it can be tough to be witty on demand. But yeah, so the format's basically the same. It's just whether or not it's superheroes or sci-fi.
So you transition from co-hosting, which you show up and you give material and you're on the microphone, to hosting, where you're shaping the show, you're writing material, and you're producing and editing the show.
No, I still just show up. No, yeah. So as far as hosting duties go, I do. So I'll write the pod crawl. I kind of write a few notes. Jason and I kind of, we'll, if we have something we want to jump in and talk about, we'll jump in and talk about it, just to make it so it's not all on me or all on him to come up with all the content. He's more highfalutin, I will call it, about like sound design and all this. He'll bring that stuff in all the time, and me, I'm kind of like, did it make sense? Is there some glaringly obvious mess ups? What was cool? What wasn't cool? That kind of deal. There wasn't. I don't. I might say something about music and stuff like that if it's annoying. If it's god awful. But I'm not looking at that. I'm more of the, did I have a good time, or did I wish I was doing something else for that hour and a half, 2 hours? So yeah.
How was learning the production side of things, like the editing and the publishing?
So that was rough. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I have dabbled in a little bit of everything in the past, being a geek and everything like that. So I've put videos together in terms of like slideshows with music. I've done things like that. I've done a little bit of audio splicing in terms of, cutting a little bit out here and adding something there to make something. But I've never done anything at this, what I'd call this level, where I'm producing a 1 hour show ish from start to finish. I've used Audacity. I use Audacity because it's free. And I've looked at Reaper. I've toyed with going to Reaper, but I don't want to have to learn everything all over again. So I haven't taken the leap to try to edit in Reaper, because apparently, Reaper's a little bit more powerful, but it's for the kicker is it's free, right? You can get a free license or whatever
for the first, I forget what it is, 30 or 60 days or whatever,
or something like that. Yeah. So, I thought I'd try it, and even buying it, it's like what, $40-$50, something like that. It's very inexpensive. So I thought about it, but right now Audacity's still free, and it does what I need to do. There was a bit of a learning curve. I had to learn about compressing. I don't really do de-essing. That's what the filter's for. But compressing, I got to do a little bit of EQ to myself because I find myself a little too bassy when I'm editing. I don't know what Jason does to me. It sounds like he takes a little bit of the bass out on his show, but I know on mine, I take a little bit of the bass out just to kind of bring it up because otherwise I sound very bassy next to Jason. Personally, for my ear, everybody's ear is different. I just
On all my tracks, I take out anything that's 100. It's 100 or 150 hertz and below. I
okay.
take out because I don't want the rumble in the background.
Right.
Some air conditioning, there's some trucks in the background or trains or something like that.
You might hear that right now. The train just went by. I can't help it. Sorry.
I kind of heard a whistle in the background,
Yeah.
but that's not why I brought it up. I brought it up because if you do that, I forget what it's called, high cut filter or whatever, then you lose a lot of that automatic and you don't have to worry about it. Also, I think that in some cars where a lot of people actually listen to podcasts, is that it gets to be too bassy.
Right.
If you have a real good sound system, and I'm not talking about bringing in a subwoofer. I'm talking about like a premium sound system that some people put in their cars,
right,
just from the factory. And I happen to have one of those in my car right now. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that if I don't do that, it becomes unlistenable for me in the car, even by going in the EQ and turning it down. There's just so much of it.
So much bass.
Yeah. So I take that out and accentuate the mids basically by doing that. And then the highs, by definition, I don't do anything to the rest of it. I don't EQ anything, but take out that high pass filter. I think it's what it's called. And that gets out the low rumbles, including my voice is the same way. And I chose my microphone specifically to reduce that as well. So I have taken steps to do that. And I can understand why somebody would want to do that as well.
Yeah. And I'm by no means a pro. I'm still learning and I'm still tweaking here and there. What was it? It was probably like back in March. I found out that I was doing my noise cancellation in the wrong order. I was doing all the processing, and then after I got done with the processing, I would do noise cancellation, thinking, okay, I fixed it all. Now I need to get rid of that noise. And no, do the noise first. So because I have to do noise cancellation on my track because of my setup, and there's a very low. It's not a rumble, but there's a low hiss when I'm not talking. And so I have to do that. And typically I've got a perfect spot for it. I do it during the pod crawl. I grab that sample during the pod crawl when I'm not supposed to be talking and just use that as my sample, and it gets rid of it. And I've changed mics, so that threw some stuff off a little bit.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second, just to have clear to anybody that might be listening to this. The first thing that I found that you should do with the track is to apply gain if you need to get to the either the dBs or normalize it with somebody else or whatever. If you have to apply gain, that's where to apply gain. Then do the noise reduction so you're not processing all that noise, and then go ahead and do whatever else it is you need to do.
Yeah.
So that is the method that I would use.
Yeah, I do a compressor, and then I go ahead and which way do I do it? Hold on, I have to do it in my head. It's all second nature.
And with Audacity, you do it one at a time per track.
Yes, yeah, you have to do it per track. Well, you can select multiple tracks and do the same thing to them, but there are certain ones where you do have to do it per track, because if you select all of them, like one of them, I do a limiter at the very end just to get rid of any of so I'm not blowing out.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do that on individual tracks. Otherwise, it adds dead space wherever there wasn't anything. And that makes it really difficult, because then you can't move your track around because it's filled up the whole thing. But yeah, I normally do a compressor. I do a normalize just to bring everything kind of the same. and then I do the noise filter, and that seems to help it. It cleans it up quite a bit.
Yeah. So you mentioned gear, and that's something I was going to ask you anyway. What gear do you currently use when you're podcasting?
Currently, I am, what is that, a Behringer?
I get kidded about all the time. I call it Behringer.
Behringer, I don't know. It's that, hold on, I got to read it. UMC 22. So just a cheap, it was like $40 USB interface type of deal. I use XLR connection from my mic, but it's a USB interface. It does pretty good, but I've noticed. So I noticed that it does pick up noise quite a bit because it doesn't have any sort of noise gate built into it, and I do all the gain there on the Behringer, so that I don't have to do as much in post. And then currently, I'm using a pod mic, a Rode pod mic, which is new, based on one of your recommendations. You had a whole better podcasting segment on mics and things like that. And I'd been looking to get one prior to that. Same interface, Behringer. I've had that for quite a while. But then I had the Samsung 2QU, and I was rocking that up until about 4 months ago, I think, is when I went to the pod mic. And I did see a difference. So the noise isn't there as much. So part of it was coming from, and I did do some testing. Part of it was coming from the Q2U. It was just picking it up. But this mic it still has just a touch. So I think some of that noise is coming from the interface itself.
Yeah, noisy preamp. It would be typical of a cheap audio interface like you're using. And not to say it's bad. I mean, you're taking care of it in post, but there are better audio interfaces to get, USB audio interfaces to get where the preamp, and it's all about the preamp. And people are like, what are the preamp? Preamp is like a little volume knob inside that actually gives more gain to the signal before it goes to the computer or tablet or wherever you have it connected to. And you have ones that give off more electric noise into the signal than others. And you basically want a better one that's shielded, and you pay for it. Basically, you pay more money for it. And if you're just a hobby podcaster and you can deal with it in post, that's fine. And if you want to not deal with it anymore, so here's the deal. Anybody that podcasts long enough, eventually are like, I just can't handle this anymore. I want to do this. But the question is, when is that? Is it 10 years from now? Is it 2 years from now? Who knows, right?
Yeah. So I was using the Q2U. I mean, that was the first one. That's what Jason told me to get when he's like, get yourself a mic. I was like, okay. So he said, get this. It's like $50. Yeah, I didn't get it on sale. So it was like $50. And it's a good $50. You know, you get it's a USB mic or XLR. So it does either or. I started with USB just because I didn't get the thing. But then, it comes with a stand. It has like a little stand that it sits on. But Jason gave me one of his old pod mic, one of his old mic stands. I'm not using it anymore, but I did for the longest time. So I mean, it was a good mic, and it did everything for the longest time. I wanted to. I'd been doing it long enough that I decided, okay, I want to update myself a touch, and I planned on updating myself a touch more when I get a better room set up. I record in my bedroom because I can shut the door. I've got too many kids and not enough rooms, so so I and the bedroom has the best sound I found. I didn't have to go all the way into the closet like some people that record. They record inside their closet with all their clothes.
And some people record in cars too, but in Texas, I can't imagine doing that.
Oh, good gosh, no! Unless you want to hear the AC the entire time.
Yeah, that would negate the reason for being in the car.
Yeah, yeah. But I've got this. I've got a window right here, so I've got the blinds. I've got blinds, but then I've also got the blackout curtain here, and that absorbs quite a bit. And I found that this has been working great.
Yeah, I won't knock anybody for starting with a Samsung Q2U or an Audio-Technica ATR 2100. Matter of fact, next week, I'm going to start podcasting with a new podcaster. And that's exactly what we got. The podcaster was an ATR 2100X, very similar to the Q2U in that it's a USB and XLR microphone. And you do that so you can start with USB, and then as they grow, you can throw in an XLR or an XLR recorder like the PodTrack B4, and you just increase over time. So it's just a natural thing to get to start, see if you want to keep with it. If you do, you start adding gear and you start getting more robust. So you get backup tracks so you don't lose recordings and that sort of stuff. You guys don't lose that many recordings from what I've heard, but I did hear that you guys were using Craigbot for a little bit, and that got
two. Yeah. Craigbot was helping. We've lost two recordings. One recording was Demolition Man. I know that one for a fact. The only reason why I remember that is because we had to record it twice. And that was Jason's fault. He was out of town. In fact, was he overseas? I don't remember. He was out of town, and so he wasn't on his normal setup. He was using the Q2U. He had that and everything like it, because that's a good travel mic too, because it's nice and compact. But he was on the wrong setting, and it came across. He forgot to change. I think he forgot to change his megahertz on his recording.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
so
right.
He was way low, and it threw up when he went to go put it together. And he's like, I can't salvage it. And so we ended up having to record it completely over. And then I lost a track because I hit the wrong key. I inadvertently deleted the file when I was trying to move things. I was trying to move files over to save them, and I thought I had grabbed that one and put it on my other computer where I do the editing, and I hadn't, and I ended up purging it off of the laptop. Craigbot came in handy there because actually for that one, we didn't use Craigbot, but Jason records. He has a Rodecaster Pro, and so he records my audio through Discord on a channel. And so he had a backup. Didn't sound quite as good, but it worked. And then for the Discord one, or the Demolition Man one, we didn't use Craigbot because it wasn't functioning that day. And I think part of that was latency, because he was out and about and not on a really solid connection. So even him and I talking was a little, there was a few times where it was like, okay, I just assume what he said and just keep going, so you had to do a lot of that. But it has saved us. Oh, and then there was one other time where for some reason my laptop mic decided to take over. I was recording through Discord on the mic, but Audacity was recording my laptop mic, so it sounded like I was in a tin can in a tunnel underwater. So we had to use another track to save that. I didn't have to deal with that one. That was Jason's problem. That was on Satis. So for me, I haven't messed up any of mine. It's always been on Satis's side. I've been real. I learned all what not to do on his show, right? So make it easier.
Sooner or later, it's not a matter of when, it's a matter, or if, it's a matter of when that
right.
It's going to happen to most hobby podcasters. Craigbot, the guy that developed it, he left. They sold it, I believe, to the people at Discord. And then he started something called eCaster, and Craigbot has not really been the same since. So I've been hearing more and more people that have had issues like you're describing with that. So there are other options. We're using StreamYard right now to record back and forth, and it's good. I'll leave the story for tomorrow on Better Podcasting live chat that I'm going to have with Steven, episode 54. But just a couple of weeks ago on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., I had to use the third backup for a co-host in order to bring him in. I had more backups. I mean, I had a combined track that I could have used, but this was the fourth track that we're recording just with his voice, and we were able to salvage it. So the backups do save you from time to time. And did it save the recording? Not necessarily, because I had my recording with my Rodecaster Pro, but it saved me from having to combine everybody on one track, and I was able to edit everybody differently. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes when you have everybody in the same track, you have leveling issues and you can't level everybody the same way. So it's always better, in my opinion, to have everybody on different tracks, but that's just my opinion. So I have a question for you. If you could have told yourself one thing to make it easier on yourself when you started podcasting, what would you have told yourself?
Just say no.
Nancy Reagan.
Yeah. No. To make it easier on myself. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe spend just a touch more upfront. I did it in stages, which, by all means, if you can, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing the stages, but I think it would have been easier on myself if I would have just gotten the interface and gotten off of the USB from the beginning for me, because I was kind of getting used to what I was doing, and then I decided, hey, I'm going to throw in this Behringer, and then it was like I was learning all over again, and I didn't know a lot to begin with, as far as the recording stuff, and so it just, for me, it was a little frustrating because it seemed like I wanted to get better, but I wasn't getting better. I didn't feel like I was getting better because I was having to fix things. Jason would tell me after every episode, he's like, after editing it, he's like, hey, yeah, what did you do? Something's different. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I did. I just plugged the stupid thing in and went to town. And, we did a test and you said it sounded good. So I left it, I think, type of, so I taking better notes maybe also might have helped. Where are my settings? There was a few times, and actually I caught myself. I got a new computer out in the game room where I do the editing, and well, not really new. I upgraded it from 10 to 11, and luckily I had all my settings written down that for Audacity and all that kind of good stuff, as far as where I put my levels for the different compressions and loud EQs and or normalizations and that kind of stuff, which is good because I had been taking notes when I first did it. And then I remembered that I had changed a few things. So it got me close, and then I had to adjust. It was like, oh, nope, I remember I put it here because I liked it better here. So that taking better notes would have been, pay attention, dude. That's what I'd tell myself. I find myself, I think personally I did it right in terms of, like I said earlier, I was eased into it. So it wasn't like, hey, I want to do podcasting. It was, hey, do you mind being on an episode a couple times? As opposed to, I want to do this and let's do it, type of deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned something before that I wanted to explore. Mm-hmm. You guys, because I've guested on both your shows before.
Yes, you have. Because you're a glutton for punishment.
Apparently. I've enjoyed
I don't know which one.
I've enjoyed every episode. You guys don't share show notes. Now, on my shows, we all share show notes and we all go over the same script. You guys don't.
So we We do and we don't. So Jason has like a OneNote thing that he puts his notes, his show notes in, and I will get into those and add the news articles for his side and that kind of stuff. But yeah, really, we don't. I have no idea what uh, truly, we have no idea what each of us think of whatever episode we're recording until we get there. We make a point, even typically he's watching Saturday for the show on Sunday, but normally I watch earlier than that. But even if we watched ahead of time, we don't talk about it Friday nights when we're talking with each other. We're because we like to keep it. We like to keep each other guessing. Now we know each other well enough that it's like, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's going to hate the heck out of this, or he'll be like, if it's time travel, I'm in, all in, 100%, 110%. I haven't had a bad time travel yet, So, Jason knows that, and is it right or wrong? I don't know. I've guessed it on yours, and the show notes thing completely threw me off because I'm not used to that kind of deal. But I can see where it's useful when it's a more, what I'm going to call a more produced show, as opposed to a couple guys just messing around.
Discussion show.
Which is what we're kind of
I'd
for.
like to make a distinction. So the purpose of show notes in a lot of cases is to prepare, and you guys prepare. You guys actually write your own notes. You just don't share what you think of the item that you're reviewing. You have a document, like you said, you put the news in, and there's 4 questions or 4 awards at the end. So there's a format to your show.
We don't share those either. Yeah, we don't share those, but we do prepare for that. Yeah.
Right. So you know which 4 awards are coming up because it's the same every single show.
4. Yep.
Yeah. So you know that, and you're prepared for it, but you just don't share.
Correct.
Yeah. I like to share because then we can make sure that we leave nothing on the table, so to speak.
Right.
But I do every once in a while, I won't put any notes in, and I'll be like surprising everybody what I think about different things, because there's some things that I like and that are not normal. Like I like episode 1 of Star Wars, for instance, and I don't like Empire Strikes Back. So, 2 taboo things in Star Wars fandom, right?
All right. It's been nice knowing you.
There you go. So those sorts of things are nice to surprise people with from time to time, right? And if you have a joke, you don't want to, tip off other people. That's something that we do on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. As a matter of fact, we do it because of, and that's what we call it, because of. We like talking about Marvel because of, and it's a whole shtick that we do at the beginning of the show to give our contact information. We never share what it is. And everybody knows when they have one, they say, I have one. And so we give it to that person, and we write that person in the show notes is going to be doing them because of, but we don't share what that is. And that's the big improv surprise factor afterwards, is we have to riff off of it. So I do see the benefits of that, because the surprise is part of the whole thing.
Thinking that there's been a couple episodes where it was, I'm like, man, he is not going to like this, and then he's like, yeah, no, I liked it, so then it totally throws off the whole. It doesn't throw off the whole show, but then it's like, okay, I was expecting Punch Down 101 today, and it ends up not being that, so. There was one recently that we did where he was pleasantly surprised, and I was entirely shocked about it, and I don't remember.
Yeah, it was before you did Heroes, I think.
Right, it was right before the summer series. Yeah.
So, what is one? It doesn't have to be but when is one of the favorite moments of your shows? We'll just combine the two together. So if you can think back of all the episodes that you did, what is one of your favorite moments that you've done podcasting?
Honestly, the big one that's stuck in my head, what is Oblivion. So we did Oblivion. And honestly, this was when Red was out. He was sick. So Jason asked me to come in. He also asked me to do the pod crawl, and I had guessed it enough times that I knew kind of what was expected. I didn't know how it was done. So basically, the pod crawl, it's a text document that we throw into a voice synthesizer. Up until actually even past when I started hosting, Jason handled all that. He would I would do the text, give it to him, and he would synthesize it. Eventually, he showed me how to do it because he was just swamped. But I remember that one because that's the first pod crawl that I did, and Jason laughed at it. In a good laugh, right? It was funny, and so that one just always sticks in my head because it was that was the first time that I'd written it, and I'm like, okay, I understand this. That's good. Other than that, I mean, doing stuff with guests is always kind of interesting. Those are always memorable because it's something different and fresh, and you don't know what you're going to expect. And then the one thing that I love doing that honestly, we haven't done it in a while is I like my convoluted timeline that tends to happen when we record because it really that's a behind the scenes type of deal is because that just really throws Jason off in terms of we haven't recorded it yet, but we have type of deal. We've done that a few times even with you.
For the uninitiated, what you're talking about is you pre-record episodes that you then release sometimes months later, and then you record another one, but that episode that you just recorded before isn't out yet. So you refer to time travel and the fact that, you'll hear about that eventually.
Yeah, because Jason's really good. So on Satis, we're pretty much there is no time travel involved. It's one right after the other. On my show, it's not so much because, especially if I'm getting a guest. A big one was I had John from Video Game Lounge on doing, which one was it? It was Batman. It was Batman Begins. We recorded that in October. It didn't release until February. It wasn't my fault. I had every intention of releasing it earlier, but other shows showed up. So, we try to get, if there's a big blockbuster, especially for superheroes, new MCU movie coming out or Spider-Man coming out, we'll try to get that within a week or two of when it comes out, just because that's how you get your clicks. And, it was October is blockbuster season. Right. So it just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And that was also prior to me really planning things out. I've got things planned out all the way till the end of the month, the end of the year for some of the shows. A little spoiler. I had it planned out so much that I announced that we were going to be releasing the Marvels next month. Because when I planned it out, the Marvels was coming out next month, not in November. And I forgot to change that on the calendar. so I do a whole announcement about it. And I'd already done the editing and everything. And then 2 episodes later, Jason and I realized, oh, we're not doing that because it's not out yet. I'm like, crap. So I got to go back and edit it. Luckily, I'm far enough ahead. We're far enough ahead in our summer series that it hadn't come out yet, but kind of fun. But time travel is always fun. The whole just totally messing things up, especially when we're doing a series.
Yeah, any way to be entertained when you get stuck in a rut like that. And there's those of us that only interview or only review series on our podcasts. And
well, even like series of movies. So the Star Wars series, Jason's just as bad with that. There were some days where we were for the Star Wars series, we got guests for just about every single one of them. And it all coincided with when they were available and which one they wanted to do. So we were doing like 1, 4, 2, 3, that's how we recorded it. And it was so confusing as to what we were supposed to be doing. So it made it kind of interesting.
All right. Is there anything about the podcasting infrastructure of the industry itself that you'd like to see changed?
Yeah, I wish it was a little bit, and it's getting there. I wish it was a little bit more mainstream. I didn't listen to podcasts prior to getting into podcasting, just because I didn't have time, and I have a 15-minute commute, so you're just getting into the meat of it, and then you got to stop, because I can't listen to it on my phone while I'm working and that kind of stuff. So I never really listened to anything. I'd listen to stuff that Jason did, or a few other podcasts here and there. I listen to a few more when I can. Better podcasting I listen to off and on. You guys are on Wednesdays, and so if we record on Wednesdays, so if we're not record every other Wednesday, so if we're not recording, sometimes I'll jump in if I can, if I'm not busy. So I wish it was a little bit more mainstream or easier to get to, I guess, in terms of like kind of like radio. You can just tune in and it's there. Unless you've got Wi-Fi or I guess the paid subscription type of stuff on your car, you can't necessarily do that unless you pre-download it and that kind of deal, or go through your phone. And I've never had a car that could do that until recently. So, it just hadn't been something I do. So, sometimes there's a little bit of a stigma behind podcasting. Oh, you podcast, weirdo. So, and then trying to separate what I do on the show versus how much am I sharing, about my real life, and how much do I want my real life to know about my podcast life? Because there's certain things that I say or do on the podcast that is for the podcast, and it's not how I am in real life most of the time. Sometimes I am, but most of the time.
You mean you don't just randomly eat moon pies all day?
No, I don't randomly eat moon pies all day. That I don't do that. Despite popular belief, I do not have a porn server laying around at the house. That kind of stuff.
Okay, nice disclaimer. I know the truth.
Yeah. So, it's things like that. There's, I'll say some really off the wall comments, and it's just for the podcast.
Just driving into the shtick.
Yeah, it is. It's a shtick that that I started and kind of got to keep with it. So, it's how much do you want to share, and how much do you want your outside world to know about your podcasting world? I'm not going to tell every one of my friends or coworkers or whatever that I have a podcast, because some of it they're not going to enjoy. I just know how they are. So,
right.
So be it.
So do you have any future plans, or you guys just plan on keeping things going like it is for a while?
So funny enough, if you're on if you're on the Discord, the Gonna Geek Discord, there was a post in Sadix. Jason ended up at the house yesterday for a little layover, trying to get back home. Completely unplanned. I got called Sunday morning or Sunday night. Hey, I need you to come get me. So it was kind of an unplanned visit. We've got some stuff that I don't think he's gonna regret me saying it. Sadis, Smoking and Drinking in Space, is gonna go on a hiatus here eventually. We don't know exactly when, because he's getting busy he's trying to get his PhD and all that. And so it means Sadik is going to be the only thing. I don't know if we're going to pick up extras, but we are going, we're going to keep going with that one at least. I don't know if we're going to pick up extra episodes. I think the plan right now is, if there's a big sci-fi show that comes out, we might do a special or that type
like
of deal.
Dune when it comes out or something like that.
Yeah. So he did specifically say, Dune Part 2, when that comes out, we're doing it. when whatever, maybe the next Star Wars movie that comes out, if they ever come out. He's staying away from the Disney Plus stuff. Just the series. We've kind of we're kind of done with the series stuff just because it's tough. But no big huge plans. Just the normal stuff. We'll be reviewing Marvels or the Marvels. We'll be reviewing Deadpool 3 when it comes out, and all the big stuff if it ever comes out. Seeing as there's like 8 different strikes going on.
Right. So you mentioned something earlier, and I didn't key in on it, but you mentioned something now about the way to grow a show is be consistent, which is
Right.
true. But there is also something to be said, and Stephen and I are becoming more and more advocates of it, of taking a seasonal approach and taking those hiatuses when life, as a hobby podcaster, as life demands it. So having and you termed it hiatus, you didn't say we're going to stop the show.
No,
having a hiatus is actually good because it gives you the time to do whatever you need to do in your personal life. And then you can return. Now, it's always good to have like a plan, like, okay, we're going to come back at such and such a date. So in the case of Satis, if you guys stop tomorrow or after Heroes or whatever, I don't know what your plan is, but if you stop after Heroes, you say, okay, we're going to come back in Dune and we're going to review it in January, or, whatever your plan is. So people can expect that episode to come out at that point in time. And then when you do the episode in January, you can say, okay, our next episode is going to be in May when we review whatever. So by announcing it on the show that you're taking a long time off, and with the large backlog that you have, you can continue to promote that on social media, and people can continue to go back, and because some of your episodes are timeless because the movies have already come out, so and it's out there. So that's a good way to take a break from a show. That's not a bad thing at all. But there's 2 different philosophies out there, and yes, while growing a show, being consistent every week is good. I also think as a hobby podcaster, it's good to take those breaks when you need them.
Yeah, and we're in a unique position in that we're taking a break from one of the shows, but we're not gone, right? We're still going to be doing the other show, and so we can plug, hey, we're going to do Dune, tune in next week because surprise, we're going to have an episode of Dune Part 2, on Satis.
And you could do a drop in the other feed and everything.
Yeah.
So,
So we're in that unique position that we can kind of do that, and we're still there. It's just not hosting or not doing that one as much, and so that kind of helps. Me personally, I haven't missed a deadline yet, and I try not to. I do my best to make sure that I'm hitting. I had one deadline that was missed by about technically 5 hours. It didn't drop at 3:00 in the morning. It dropped at 8:00 in the morning, and that's because Jason set it up for me and accidentally marked it private. So I was looking to see if it had, and it was this summer Heroes show. I was checking to see if he had put it in there, and I was like, "Hey, wait, it's not there," because he told me he had posted it. He posted it at like midnight. He goes, "It's up there. It's good." I'm like, "All right, great." And I went to bed, but then it wasn't there. When I went to check the site, it wasn't there. He had accidentally clicked the make private thing. I fixed it. It still went out the same day, but I try my best to stay very consistent with my release schedule, and that's where the time travel stuff comes in. I will pre-record till the cows come home if it allows me to not miss something in the future. I will do that. Because if I can pre-record it, I can edit it whenever I need to. Because I'm busy. Life's busy, and sometimes, we got to take a week off or a month or 2 weeks off because of going on vacation or something like that. So, but if we have a calendar and we look at it and we're real good about it. Like for our Heroes thing, we took an entire month off. We started recording this stuff in March. So, the ultimate time travel there.
Well, you started in March and your first drop was what, May, June?
May something. Yeah. I think it was right after Memorial Day. No, I don't know. I'd have to look. But yeah, it was
2.5 months pre-recorded.
Yeah. And we were doing that on top of our normal schedule, which made it a little rough, but we made it work. We knew going in, because we were like, we'd rather front load ourselves now than have to try to struggle, because we knew we were doing one every week. For this summer thing, we're basically every week we're doing it. So we got to make sure that we had it.
So you're reviewing 6 episodes every week. So that means 24 episodes you're reviewing every month, and it just stacks up.
Right. And we could have quickly gotten behind, knowing that we physically weren't going to be able to record for 3 weeks. So we had to make sure that we were ahead enough that it didn't get in the way.
Yeah. Well, there were some comments in the chat that I want to bring to your attention right now.
I see some of those, yeah.
Yeah, the first will come from Liberty Dude, and he was responding to you upgrading in our upgrade talk that we had with gear, and he said it's almost like upgrading is an affirmation of the fun of podcasting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I started simple. I upgraded a little bit. I'm honestly, I might bite the bullet and go with a duo, a Rodecaster.
Yeah, pricey, but okay.
Yeah, I was gonna do a what was that thing? The Go XLR, but then when they shuttered the entire business, or that side of the thing, there was that announcement that came out. It was kind of like, yeah, I'd rather be supported. So I might do the Procaster Duo or the Rodecaster Duo. I don't know if I would do the Procaster 2.
Rodecaster Pro 2.
Yeah, there you go. I knew it was in there somewhere. I had all the letters in the right spots.
Well, there's two things out there. So there's what I have, the Rodecaster Pro 2, and you would get the newer Rodecaster Duo, which is the Rodecaster Pro 2, just downsized a little bit.
Smaller.
But it's still expensive. It's like $500.
Yeah, $400 or $500. Where the other one's, what, $600, $700? That might be my next upgrade, but that's going to be when I get a new room. Because I'm literally, well, you can't see it. I'm on a 2-foot table. I'm on a 2-foot folding table with a laptop sitting on it, because that's all the space I have in my room. Granted, I guess I could have gotten rid of the 4-foot CO2 laser that's in the corner, but priorities, man, priorities.
There you go. Liberty Dew also said, with a push towards a smoke-free world, do you get pushback, or do you find cigars like Mary's Wanna MJ are not considered the same as cigarettes?
So I saw that, and I wasn't exactly sure how that is.
Well, your title of your show, right?
So the whole the whole thing with smoking and drinking, it started. Smoking and drinking in space started because of Battlestar Galactica, the original series, and even the reimagined one. Classic sci-fi. Booze is everywhere. Doc Cottle is smoking with his hands in a chest. He's got a cigarette in his mouth and his hands in the chest, type of deal. And so that's kind of where it started from, with Jason and Red when they were talking about Battlestar Galactica one day, and so it was kind of that thing. And so we do awards at the end. We have a black lung, which is the smoking part. Did anybody smoke? Whether it be literally like cigarette or cigar, or figuratively like a dude got caught on fire, that he's smoking, he's on fire, that type of deal. The drinking aspect is, again, is anybody drinking or acting drunk, or I mean, we've gone so far as to, the writers had to have been drunk when they wrote this crap, that kind of stuff. And then we have the other two, was a Purple Hippo, which is just out of your mind, and then the player, whether it be somebody's playing somebody or somebody's a ladies' man, and all of that kind of stemmed from Battlestar Galactica, because they and they have honorary people that if people don't show up, that's who gets it, and a lot of them are, Richard Dawson, Doc Cottle, they generated those from Battlestar Galactica. We have found, especially on the superhero side and the mainstream MCU stuff, we have found that Disney doesn't like smoking and drinking, and they kind of frown upon that. Heck, we got our first F-bomb in an MCU movie with Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah, we did.
So up until then, it'd been very clean, with the exception of Iron Man. There was quite a bit of drinking in the Iron Man series, but that's his character, right? I mean, there for a while he was a booze hound. So I don't know. We really haven't had any pushback. We try our best not to. I've found, and me personally, I won't talk about the marijuana or drug use type of stuff for the award. I try not to bring that to the forefront. It's because we aren't PG-13, but we aren't like hard R. We'll cuss and stuff like that, but there's a certain image that we want to, not a certain line we don't want to cross, so to speak. We don't know where that line is because it moves, but there is a line. Personally, there's a line that I won't cross when it comes to that kind of stuff.
So to answer Liberty Dew's question, it's more to do with what you see on screen than you personally.
Right. I don't personally smoke. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do alcohol. And that's just me. Jason does. He had a bunch of margaritas last day. You saw that in the picture. He had himself a flight of margaritas. I don't look against anybody. Red was an avid smoker. Heck, he would smoke during the show. You could hear him start one up, and I think that was part of his shtick. That was part of that when it started, right? Was the fact that you're talking about sci-fi while you're smoking and drinking. Jason cracked open Chateau Picard for the first season of Picard, and it was an interesting episode when he did that, because he got worse and worse as the episode went, because he was getting more sloshed, and he finished off the bottle. Regretted it the next day, but he finished off the bottle. So
all right. Well, we've gone on long enough for tonight for me. Anyway, that's all I can handle of the Rob. So where can people find your show?
So we are on the Gonna Geek Network. So you can go to the Discord or the gonnageek.com and find our links there. But you can either go to smokinganddrinkinginspace.com. Is it on there? No, it just says it. No, it just says Smoking and Drinking in Space. Or smokinganddrinkingincapes.com. We release every other week in terms of the respective shows. Right now we are doing what we're calling Hot Heroes Summer. So because we are gluttons for punishment, we are reviewing all 4 seasons of Heroes in its entirety, and we are releasing those every week on both feeds. So we take turns hosting, but we are releasing it on both feeds. We talked about it, and we think that will be better for posterity's sake, for anybody that gets in on the back later on and might want to look at the back catalog. I'm still trying to convince them, and maybe you guys can help me here. I'm trying to convince them to just go all the way and go ahead and do Heroes Reborn and knock out all of the heroes. I haven't convinced him yet. It's only 3 more episodes on the show. It's 18 for us, but 3 more episodes for him. So, if you want that, throw it in the Discord, make him feel pressured, because I'm all for it. I'm ready. I'll do it. Might as well finish it off. Go out with a bang. It'll never show up again, guys. He didn't know that I was going to try to do this.
Never say never.
He hasn't shown up on the chat. So I don't think he's listening, which is excellent.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see. This is going to go out later too. So we'll see if he picks that up.
Right.
Well, Rob, thanks for joining me. It's been a blast. I appreciate your time. And thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for spending your time with Rob and myself for the past hour. If you like content like this, subscribe to the Better Podcasting YouTube channel and like this video and ring that bell. Or if you are listening to the audio version, give Better Podcasting Chats with SP a follow on your podcatcher of choice. Stephen and I would greatly appreciate it. So season 3 of Better Podcasting Live Chat is live right now. We've concluded season 3 of the main Better Podcasting show. Better Podcasting main show will come back later on this summer. And we look forward to seeing you over there. If you would like to schedule a time with me, please drop me a line or email me at stargatepioneer@betterpodcasting.com and we'll look at a date to have you on the show. True story, Rob and I scheduled this about 4 months ago because this was the first date that we could fit in. So yes, they can schedule that far out. In the meantime, you can join the podcasting conversation over on our Discord server, betterpodcasting.com/Discord. You can find both Stephen and myself there every day, as well as the entire Better Podcasting community. And that's where the real value is you can tap into that knowledge because everybody has some knowledge over there. And if you are a geeky related podcast, consider becoming part of the Gonna Geek Network. You can apply via gonnageek.com/join. We'll see everybody next time. Bye.